Hello, everyone. Dominic here with Dream Again and the Dreamstart interview series. Wonderful to be here with you. Very briefly, every dream starts with a story. Dreamstart is a short live stream to meet interesting and exciting people. Join us. We're going to hear three important stories of origin, identity, and purpose. Who knows? A story could inspire you to make a difference. I'm joined today by Trisha Lewis. Hi, Trisha. Welcome.
Hiya.
Trisha is a forensic mentor out of the UK, and we've never met before. Trisha, I'm excited to just say hi and just lean back and join people and listen to some of your stories. So, why don't we just jump right into it here? I'd love to hear your first story, the story of your origin, probably something in your childhood or maybe something earlier in your life that set you up for who you are today.
Yes, I just realized something incredibly unprofessional that my phone just made a noise. I have now switched it off.
That's okay.
Right, back live. So origin, yeah, what got what got me to where I am today? Well, this is nearly 64 years later, so that's a long life,
Hmm.
and therefore a lot of stories, and some might be a bit blurred, but I would say I could quite accurately talk about being nosy when I was a kid, and rather interested in people, and
Okay.
also rather interested in the idea of dressing up and performing, which kind of developed at some stage into proper acting. I say proper acting, you know what I mean. And the nosiness, whilst I could no longer go and actually stare at people like you can because it's cute when you're a kid, I have found ways of eavesdropping and generally just meeting lots of interesting people. And I just find, I just find human behavior rather fascinating. So I suppose the origins were in curiosity, which has remained a constant throughout my life, which is I'm very glad to say that because I think it has quite a sort of life-saving quality about it,
Hmm.
curiosity. So I
That's
like
so
that one.
interesting. I see though, I'm curious if you could unpack why being an actress was something that appealed to you, because right now they seem to be two very different impulses. One is to be highly attentive to others, and then the actress is for others to be highly attentive to you. Or maybe they do play together well.
What a brilliant question, Dominic, and one I've never quite been asked in that way. But yeah, that's good because it would seem, in simplistic terms, to be a bit like that. I get that, but actually, as an actor, I know weirdly I don't associate it with being looked at. And how
Mm.
how weird is that? Because it would seem like that's such an obvious thing. You've stood there on a stage, for goodness sakes, under a spotlight. Everyone's looking at you.
Hmm.
But I do see it as A, being curious about the character that you're playing, the role, and B, although I might have developed this, I think, in later life, probably not as aware when I was younger, but B, very much about the audience. And
Hmm.
were we, were we doing something that they were able to engage with? So actually, yeah, it's on the surface, it would I always say this to people, it's not something that people who are just wanting to show off and say,
Yeah,
"Here am
exactly.
I, look at me." It's not
Hmm.
really about that, although there are, of course, actors who would fall into that category.
Yeah. No, I can. This is the one funny thing about human nature is our ability to take one idea and then live it out in a variety of different ways in our own lives. So I can start to understand, some of your approach. I was fortunate to be in a college musical and, so to be on stage under the lights and that sort of thing. But you're right about uh, playing off the audience and being highly aware of their reactions to what you're doing. So I can see now the overlap between the
Mm.
two. So, okay, that's fascinating. So, being an actress. Okay, so the second question then is We have origin, identity, and then purpose is the third one. So let's talk about identity. And you had shared a prompt about writing and touring as your first one-woman play, and that set you up for cementing a direction you wanted to take in your life. Care to share?
Yeah. So obviously, I'm not going to tell the listeners my entire or viewers my entire life story because that would be hours and hours. But so we're going to miss out a few crucial bits in a way. But
Hmm.
taking what got me to doing the touring one woman plays and what a big moment that was in figuring myself out. I guess the trigger for that was that I had a family, and I went on to have a sort of child slightly later as well. So at that point, I thought, well, how do I make this work practically? You know, because going off on tours or even rehearsals is very, very difficult when you've got a little baby and everything. So it was at that point that I started thinking, well, I could be proactive about this and do my own thing, which I could then organize my own time around.
Nice.
And that's what triggered me to think, let me write a one woman play. And in fact, it started off, I did something in schools on World War II as a character. And it sort of, that was the first moment. But then I actually got some arts funding and I wrote, devised and got a director in with me and did this show, but I managed to just tour it in ways that made sense with my personal life as well. So I was able to do them within a certain radius and come back the same night, and it just, and of course rehearsal schedules were down to me.
Yeah.
And so it it sparked off something then, I suppose, a sense that I could be proactive rather than, as an actor, you're often in a situation where you're auditioning or you're waiting for auditions to come up, you're
Mm-hmm.
waiting for the response, you know, oh, woe is me, I haven't got that part, I'll have to wait until another one. You know, it's all a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
bit depressing. And I think that realization that, look, I don't need to do that. Let's just do it this way. And in the course of doing that, it meant that I kind of grew more, I think, at one with my abilities and I had to do other things to do with organization and a little bit of marketing, not too much.
Uh-huh.
But it, you know, it was down to me. And I kept learning and learning and learning. And the writing was something I enjoyed, the creative part of it. And I thought, oh no, I really like, yeah, I like putting these things together. So I wasn't working off scripts. I wasn't working off a play script that was handed to
Mm-hmm.
me. I was actually creating, you know, thinking what could I make something out of, and it was often interesting characters. And I did one on Virginia Woolf and Mary Wollstonecraft. I did one on a 1950s housewife, and then there was a comedian called Joyce Grenfell who maybe not many people have heard, although she did go to America a lot
Okay.
back in the 60s and 70s, and she was a sort of observational humor, um, brilliant woman. And I just took her on, and 20 odd years, and I'm still actually appearing, doing that show or a
Oh,
variety of
how
that
fun.
show all these years later. So it definitely was quite a sort of little tipping point in many ways.
Yeah, that's how fun. I love how emotive you are and how expressive, and it's it's great. What was the that your first play that you did? What was the theme? What was the story there?
The first proper play I did was called Saving Time, and it was slightly dark, and I fairly quickly after that went into doing things that had a little bit more humor in them, because I think, yeah, it can have an effect on you generally in day-to-day life. And that's the thing with acting, actually. If you get involved in, I did Ibsen and various things that were quite dark, and I'm I soak stuff up a lot, and I've got quite a high empath kind of, tune in, and so I have to be careful to manage that. So I think
Mm,
bringing more humor in was something I quite deliberately did. But this first one was quite dark because it was based on a 1950s, as I say, housewife, and it was based on around my mother. And yeah, it really was. So who had various nervous breakdowns during her life, and this woman
Oh, I'm
ended up
sorry.
having a nervous breakdown because she was so constricted by all
Hmm.
these perfect things that she had to be in this world of pinnies and beautiful hair.
Hmm.
And then the second half was set in the 80s, and it was a sassy businesswoman who happened to be the granddaughter of this other woman. So, and
Oh,
then there
okay.
was this link because she too was frustrated, but frustrated in a different way, in a different time
Hmm.
culturally. She was getting broody, but she had a career. There was that kind of theme going on. And then she found this letter that her grandmother had written, and there was this brilliant little linkage. But I played a number of different characters as well. I even played a man at one stage. In fact, I've got a hat here, which is quite similar to the hat I wore when I was at one
Okay.
point being a man in this scene and a woman. So it all sounds a bit nuts, but it kind
I'd
of
love to see
works.
some, if there's recordings. I'd love to see some of these.
I
That
wish, people never did it then.
ah,
They
okay.
never, it was before, I mean, I know it sounds silly, but 80s, 90s, people just
Hmm.
weren't clicking and
Yeah.
camera
Okay.
phones and videoing everything and putting it all over. So I've got like tiny little bits of ropey footage from, backstage or, so,
Okay.
which is a shame, but I've got the memories. Yeah.
Sure. Oh, well, that's great. Well, that hat I think is a great segue maybe into your third story here, which is the story of purpose. And I think we're looking at a picture of your book back there behind you. So you invented a character, and does that hat play a part in it?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay.
But good segue. And yeah, it's quite subtle, isn't it? The way I've sat just accidentally
Yeah, it just
in
occurred to me,
front of
I
the
was wondering.
book and the poster and the
Yeah, there
book.
you
Yeah.
go.
But no, there is a good story behind this, and it might be of interest to people because it's got a little bit of a message in it, really. So despite all this actor stuff and what have you, I was battling with really I know, quite weird self-esteem stuff, I think. And it was only as I kept reinventing life a little bit, and I I didn't ever want to give up, so I kept kind of pushing forward, but I was still trying to find what I was doing, and I was getting, relationships and all that stuff. And then about 5 years ago, I thought, let's see if I can't step into the world of sort of having my own business. Because I was more like in the arts kind of environment and did various portfolio career things, but they all had communication at the key
Hmm.
heart of them. They all had rapport building and instant trust and storytelling were all common to everything I was doing. So I thought, yeah, I'd done a degree as a mature student in communication. So I thought, let's see if I can help people with maybe presentation skills, whatever. And so I walked into the business world, and at that point, the sort of inner critic demons just came flinging themselves at me from every direction. And then I did some reverse engineering and realized how much all of that stuff had actually been affecting me forever. But
Okay.
I hadn't kind of put a name to it, if you like. So I
Hmm.
did read up a lot about imposter syndrome and what have you. And it's because I felt so sort of alien in this world, and I
Hmm.
felt like I needed to be something that maybe I wasn't. But of course, that was me making stuff up in my head. And as I gradually figured this stuff out, and I started doing talks and workshops on it and having conversations and realizing, oh my God, everybody's got this going on. This, and that was quite reassuring. And I did various sort of videos on all of this, and I thought, so eventually I thought I I need to bring together, I need to practice what I'm preaching now, and I need to bring my full self to all of this. Just because I'm in the business world, does that mean I have to hide the fact that I'm an actor and hide my kind of this?
Uh-huh.
And fortunately, I found a very good community. It's called You Are the Media, actually, and I know there are people all over the world who are connected to this community. But it kind of started near here, and I went to some group sort of lunches and stuff, and it was nothing like any other networking events I'd been to, and I felt, oh, thank goodness, I'm home. And I was encouraged to bring that side of me out, at which point somebody actually said, and you could do this on LinkedIn. And I just kind of one day picked up this hat from my sort of various store of things, and I walked in front of my camera on a tripod, and I started giving a communication tip as a character called Investigator Lewis, a sort of 1940s private investigator voice. The trench coat came, the dark glasses, and it sort of developed. But the point being that the reaction was so positive. It was that sense, oh my gosh, I haven't completely wrecked my reputation as a somebody who mentors or whatever in the business world. It's done the opposite. People now think, oh, now I'm beginning to know who Trisha really is. And not only that, but I'm encouraging other people to do this as well, not put on hats. I mean, just to be who they are, all bits of them, and not be worried. So it was a real turning point. And then because of, I wouldn't have carried on doing it if nobody had been interested. I'm not a complete, I'm not in it for, oh, look, I just love this character, so I'm going to carry on doing it all over LinkedIn. It was the reaction that I got that made me pursue it. And it sort of became quite a thing. And then when I decided, yes, I really do want to write a book, and I want it to resonate with people, this whole weird stuff that we do inside our heads that really squashes us. And one day I said squash, and I thought that's quite a good word. I didn't want to use the word imposter syndrome because I've got a slightly different take on it, and I didn't want people to just go down that same alleyway with that label. I wanted people's brains to be shaken up a little bit. So that's how the title came about. And I worked with a book coach, and I said, shall I put little bits of Investigator Lewis in sort of at the end of each chapter? She said, I don't think so. She said, I think you'll put all of Investigator Lewis in. Very good advice. So yes, it developed as something that's not quite like any other business book, but it's gone down really well. So I feel good because, it just feels like I did the real deal kind of thing. Yeah.
Fantastic. How long has the book been out?
April the 1st it came out, so not long at all.
Wait, of this year?
Yeah, this year.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh no, I'd love to get my hands on a copy of that. That it's so funny you make that point about imposter syndrome, and a lot more people struggling with that than we think.
And my sort of little twist on it as well goes back to where we started, which was, I see my young 2-year-old, 3-year-old self as being quite a feisty, curious, funny kid. And then I see this suppression, I'm not saying my parents were deliberately suppressing me, but it was late 50s, 60s, and it was all a bit conventional. And then somehow I got very self-conscious, as we do as we grow up, and so squash, 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 squash. And so I sort of see that kind of thing, and then I came back out and unsquash. And what I realized then was actually what I've been doing in a way was suppressing my sort of personality, passion, and power out of a fear of being judged as a show off. How about that? And it still creeps up on me every now and then, but I'm way more relaxed because I am just being me. I'm not putting on an act. I'm not, as I say to people, you're not showing off unless you are showing off. Ta-da!
There you go. Apart from getting a copy of your book, what would be a piece of advice that you'd offer people struggling with imposter syndrome?
I think the self-awareness, as with everything in life, is right up there. So that's why I use the word forensic a lot, because because I know that just thinking about it or even just talking about it just isn't enough. You've got to almost come out of your own head. I do agree with the whole idea of kind of naming the person in here that's doing all this silly stuff, so you can have a jolly good, for goodness sakes.
Powwow
Um,
with them, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And then getting forensic about it, saying, well, hang on a minute. So what is the trigger? That's funny. There's a common link. Every time that happens, or I'm
Mhm.
with that person, or I'm doing that, or I see something on somebody's website, or whatever it is, or I'm at a certain networking. Every time that happens, I go down this negative spiral of so why? What was it? And then you kind of get forensic. You think, there's a bit of baggage here. Okay, well, let's get
Yeah.
that out and unpack it, And not only that, there's this thing that society does to us all the time, isn't there? Yeah, that's a message. You're falling for that. Okay, so that's my advice: is spot the symptoms, spot
Mhm.
the triggers. Don't get all down and low about it. Get quite excited, because now you're going to get all forensic, like in those detective series. Get all the photos up on the board with the nice little bits of ribbon, and really think, okay, I see there's a connection here, and da da da. And then also be open about it with people. That's the other big one, because
Mhm.
once you realize you can almost laugh at yourself then, because everybody's saying, oh my god, I do that as well. I look at other people's websites and think, oh god, they're proper business people, I'm not. Just because it's, I don't know, got some flashy branding on it. I don't know, I shouldn't talk
Uh-huh.
about branding,
Do you
but yeah.
think that more people are waking up or becoming more comfortable with expressing who they are and not just what's maybe culturally expected in the business world? Do you see more of that happening now?
Yes,
Great.
a lot more. In fact, it almost begins to look a bit weird when you come across people posting like old
Uh,
style. Sort of think, what's that about? Using all these kind of words that we don't usually use. It's funny actually how quickly that has developed, I think.
mhm.
I don't think that's been a very long time span between people using sort of business speak
Yeah,
in things
the
that they share, and
jargon
this
and yeah.
normal language. Yeah.
Mhm. No,
It's
it's so
good.
funny. I think that social really has dissolved a lot of things very, very quickly, and we're still just trying to, the generations, we're just trying to catch up and learn standards or loosens. Anyhow, there's a whole fun
Oh,
discussion.
it's a bit that's a long yeah, we could get deep on that, yeah.
Well, let's wrap up, Trisha. Thank you so much for taking the time today to share your three stories. The stories really are the shortest distance between two people. I mean, I feel like I know so much. I mean, I had no idea who you were before this call, and now I hope that in the same way that people watching this have also got a sense of more of who you are and why you approach the work that you do. So thank you again. It was wonderful to spend this time with you. For those who are watching, if you enjoyed this, please share it with the one friend that you think would like to see it. And who do you think I should chat with next? Go ahead, DM me or tag a friend. But again, I believe that every dream starts with a story, and own your stories. They're what make you stand out in business. So thanks again, Trisha. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Bye
You
bye.
too.